Picture three lower jaws laid out on a wooden table, side by side, under a bare workroom light. The first belongs to a gorilla, massive, heavy, built to grind through a forest of tough leaves. The second belongs to a Neanderthal, a cousin who was stronger than you in almost every way, with a bite that could crush what yours never could. The third is human, yours. It is the smallest and the most fragile of the three. Now run your eye along the front bottom edge of each one. The gorilla's jaw slopes backward, sinking down and away beneath the teeth. The Neanderthal's does the same, powerful and yet retreating. Only the third, the delicate latecomer, pushes a small wedge of bone forward, out past the teeth, into the open air. A tiny, bony prow at the very front of the face. Lift your hand and feel it right now, just beneath your lower lip. Every human alive carries one, and, as far as we can tell, no other creature that has ever lived ever did. It is easy to assume such a thing must be built for power, a reinforcing beam to brace a heavy bite, or a weapon to lead with in a fight. That is the natural guess, and it is almost certainly wrong. Your chin is not where your jaw is strongest, and it did not grow to help you chew. The strange truth is that your chin may be less an addition than a leftover, the last piece left standing after the rest of your face pulled back and shrank away. It is the footprint of a vanishing, printed into the bone under your mouth. And to understand how a shrinking face could leave a bump behind, you have to rewind, far past mirrors and tables, back to ancestors whose faces jutted out like muzzles, and who never carried a chin at all. So hold two questions in your mind as we go. Where did this little wedge of bone actually come from, if nothing set out to build it? And why do you have one when the Neanderthals, standing right beside us, never did? The answers are hiding in a story about food, about faces, and about a jaw slowly folding in on itself. Go back first to the deep past, to ancestors who wore their faces forward. Their jaws were long and heavy, packed with big teeth, hung under wide, flaring cheekbones. This was a face built for work. Life meant biting, tearing, and grinding for hours a day. Raw roots, tough stems, hard seeds, uncooked meat clinging to bone. A face like that is a machine for chewing, and everything about it points outward, thrusting the teeth ahead of the skull to meet the food. Search along the bottom of those ancient jaws, and you find no chin, because there was no reason for one. The whole lower face pressed forward as a single sloping ramp of bone, teeth first. For a span of time almost too long to feel, this was simply what the front of a face looked like. Nothing about it hinted that a small forward point would ever appear at the base. Then the food changed, and the face began to answer. Slowly, our ancestors stopped meeting their meals with raw muscle. They cracked and pounded with stones, sliced with sharp flakes, and in time laid food into fire. Cooking did outside the mouth what teeth and guts once had to do within it, softening flesh, breaking down hard roots, unlocking energy before a single bite. A meal that once demanded hours of grinding could be swallowed after a fraction of the chewing, and a body rarely pays for a machine it no longer runs. With less chewing to do, the huge teeth were no longer worth their cost, and they shrank. The heavy jaw that carried them had less to brace against, and it shrank too. Generation after generation, the great chewing face quietly pulled itself in, growing shorter, flatter, and smaller beneath the eyes. The muzzle was retreating. Here is where our own line did something peculiar. In our species, the face did not just shrink. It tucked itself back and down, folding in under a high, round brain case until it sat almost directly beneath the forehead rather than out in front of it. Picture the front of the lower jaw as two layers stacked together. The upper layer holds the teeth, and the lower layer is the base of the bone that runs beneath them. As the face retreated, the tooth-bearing layer was pulled backward with the shrinking teeth, but the lower base did not draw back nearly as far. One layer stepped back, the other held its ground. And the little shelf left jutting forward where they no longer line up is exactly what you feel beneath your lip. Your chin is not a thing that grew outward. It is the piece that stayed put, while the face above it drew in. Which is why the most delicate jaw on that table is the only one that points. But this raises a real puzzle, and it has divided researchers for well over a century. If a shrinking face leaves a chin behind, then why do we alone carry one? Other humans shrank their faces too. The Neanderthals cooked, used tools, and had smaller teeth than the ancestors before them, yet their jaws sweep back to nothing at the front. So line up the usual suspects and question each one. The first suspect is chewing, the old idea that the chin is a buttress braced against the force of the bite. It has a clean alibi. When researchers measured the stresses of chewing, the chin turned out to be poorly placed to resist them, and, stranger still, faces that chew less tend to have more of a chin, not less. A brace that appears only when the pressure drops is no brace at all. The second suspect is speech, the pull of the tongue and the muscles of talking. The evidence there is thin and hard to pin down, more hunch than proof. The third suspect is attraction. Chins differ between the sexes and may have been read as a signal worth choosing a mate by, which could have nudged the shape along. Possible, but far too weak to be the whole story. Which leaves the quiet suspect standing in the corner, the way our particular face folded in. Our face did not merely get smaller, it retracted underneath the brain in a way the Neanderthal face, pushed forward at the middle, never did. The chin is the signature of that one inward fold. It is less an invention than a footprint, the shape left in the bone by a face that shrank in a way no other face ever had. Which answers the last question. If nothing built the chin on purpose, why has it never gone away? Because there was nothing to remove, and no reason to remove it. A footprint costs the body almost nothing to keep. It is not a hungry organ demanding fuel, not a fragile part inviting injury, just a small consequence woven into the way a human face grows. You are not born with it announced. A newborn's chin is faint, and it emerges slowly as the child's face develops into its folded, tucked-in adult shape, printing the old pattern fresh in every generation. Nothing works to erase a shape that harms nothing and comes free with the face you are always going to grow. So it stays. Return now to those three jaws on the table. The gorilla and the Neanderthal wore their faces forward, and their jaws run smoothly back beneath the teeth. Only the fragile third folded its face inward under a tall, round skull, and only the fragile third was left with a little prow of bone at the front. Not the mark of the strongest bite in the room, the mark of the face that pulled back the furthest. So the next time your fingers brush the point of your chin, remember that you are touching the edge of a disappearance, the last forward step of a face that spent hundreds of thousands of years retreating beneath your brain. It is one of the quietest signatures our species carries, and almost no one ever notices it. If you want to keep finding the ancient story hidden in your own body, stay with me. There is far more of it than one small bump of bone.